The Dore Lectures on Mental Science. By Thomas Troward. Lecture 2. Individuality. Part 2 of 2. Man's place in the cosmic order is that of a distributor of the divine power, subject, however, to the inherent law of the power which he distributes. We see one instance of this in ordinary science, in the fact that we never create force, all we can do is to distribute it. The very word man means distributor or measurer, as in common with all words derived from the Sanderit root mn, it implies the idea of measurement, just as in the words moon, month, mens, mind, and man, the Indian weight of 80 pounds, and it is for this reason that man is spoken of in Scripture as a steward, or dispenser of the divine gifts. As our minds become open to the full meaning of this position, the immense possibilities and also the responsibility contained in it will become apparent. It means that the individual is the creative center of his own world. Our past experience affords no evidence against this, but on the contrary, is evidence for it. Our true nature is always present, only we have hitherto taken the lower and mechanical side of things for our starting point, and so have created limitation instead of expansion. And even with the knowledge of the creative law which we have now attained, we shall continue to do this, if we seek our starting point in the things which are below us and not in the only thing which is above us, namely the divine mind, because it is only there that we can find illimitable creative power. Life is being, it is the experience of states of consciousness, and there is an unfailing correspondence between these inner states and our outward conditions. Now we see from the original creation that the state of consciousness must be the cause, and the corresponding conditions the effect, because at the starting of the creation no conditions existed, and the working of the creative mind upon itself can only have been a state of consciousness. This, then, is clearly the creative order, from states to conditions. But we invert this order, and seek to create from conditions to states. We say, if I had such and such conditions they would produce the state of feeling which I desire, and in so saying we run the risk of making a mistake as to the correspondence, for it may turn out that the particular conditions which we fixed on are not such as would produce the desired state. Or, again, though they might produce it in a certain degree, other conditions might produce it in a still greater degree, while at the same time opening the way to the attainment of still higher states and still better conditions. Therefore our wisest plan is to follow the pattern of the parent mind and make mental self-recognition our starting point, knowing that by the inherent law of spirit the correlated conditions will come by a natural process of growth. Then the great self-recognition is that of our relation to the Supreme Mind. That is the generating center and we are distributing centers, just as electricity is generated at the central station and delivered in different forms of power by reason of passing through appropriate centers of distribution, so that in one place it lights a room, in another conveys a message, and in a third drives a tram car. In like manner the power of the universal mind takes particular forms through the particular mind of the individual. It does not interfere with the lines of his individuality, but works along them, thus making him, not less, but more himself. It is thus, not a compelling power, but an expanding and illuminating one, so that the more the individual recognizes the reciprocal action between it and himself, the more full of life he must become. Then also we need not be troubled about future conditions because we know that the all-originating power is working through us and for us, and that according to the law proved by the whole existing creation, it produces all the conditions required for the expression of the life, love and beauty which it is, so that we can fully trust it to open the way as we go along. The great teacher's words, "Take no thought for the morrow," and note that the correct translation is, "Take no anxious thought," are the practical application of the soundest philosophy. This does not, of course, mean that we are not to exert ourselves. We must do our share in the work, and not expect God to do for us what He can only do through us. We are to use our common sense and natural faculties in working upon the conditions now present. We must make use of them, as far as they go, but we must not try and go further than the present things require. We must not try to force things, but allow them to grow naturally, knowing that they are doing so under the guidance of the all-creating wisdom. Following this method we shall grow more and more into the habit of looking to mental attitude as the key to our progress in life, knowing that everything else must come out of that, and we shall further discover that our mental attitude is eventually determined by the way in which we regard the divine mind. Then the final result will be that we shall see the divine mind to be nothing else than life, love and beauty, beauty being identical with wisdom or the perfect adjustment of parts to whole, and we shall see ourselves to be distributing centers of these primary energies and so in our turn subordinate centers of creative power. And as we advance in this knowledge we shall find that we transcend one law of limitation after another by finding the higher law, of which the lower is but a partial expression, until we shall see clearly before us, as our ultimate goal, nothing less than the perfect law of liberty, not liberty without law which is anarchy, but liberty according to law. In this way we shall find that the Apostle spoke the literal truth, when he said, that we shall become like him when we see him as he is, because the whole process by which our individuality is produced is one of reflection of the image existing in the divine mind. When we thus learn the law of our own being we shall be able to specialize it in ways of which we have hitherto but little conception, but as in the case of all natural laws the specialization cannot take place until the fundamental principle of the generic law has been fully realized. For these reasons the student should endeavor to realize more and more perfectly, both in theory and practice, the law of the relation between the universal and the individual minds. It is that of reciprocal action. If this fact of reciprocity is grasped, it will be found to explain both why the individual falls short of expressing the fullness of life, which the spirit is, and why he can attain to the fullness of that expression, just as the same law explains why iron sinks in water, and how it can be made to float. It is the individualizing of the universal spirit, by recognizing its reciprocity to ourselves, that is the secret of the perpetuation and growth of our own individuality. Lecture 2. Individuality. End of lecture. Need help understanding Troward's teachings? The Thomas Troward lectures contain very deep and powerful information, but to get the most out of them, require repeated listening and in-depth study. Troward had only one personal student, Genevieve Behrend, and her book Your Invisible Power distills the essence of Troward's lectures in a concise and easy-to-understand format. For many, this is a much preferred way to learn Troward's teachings. Click the link below this video to visit yourinvisiblepower.us and learn more about Genevieve Behrend's recently updated book.
Click the link in the description below for a chance to win 10 classic best-selling Law of Attraction books